Hold it in your hand for a second. A little cardboard box, no bigger than a matchbook, with a cake of hardened black paste pressed into the bottom and a tiny brush resting on top. That was mascara, before mascara was a tube. You wet the brush, you scrubbed it across the cake, and if the water wasn't handy, you did what your mother did and what her mother did before her. You spit on it. They called it spit black, and nobody thought twice about the name. "It sounds almost crude now," said out loud in a bathroom with a marble counter and a soft closed drawer, but there was nothing careless about it. It was a small, exact ritual, repeated every single morning, and it worked. There was a whole face waiting to be built behind that little cardboard lid, and building. It was half the pleasure of the morning. Back then, a face took time. Nobody minded. Somebody, a mother, an older sister, an aunt with a steady hand, sat you down at a mirror and showed you how, and you watched before you ever tried it yourself. There was no video to pause and rewind. There was just her hands, and then your hands, getting it wrong a few times before it was right. You remember the particular quiet of those mornings, don't you? The two of you leaning toward the same small mirror, her breath close, the room smelling faintly of powder and hairspray. Neither of you saying much because none of it needed saying. You are going to hear that phrase again before we are through. And wait until you hear what one London designer packaged her eyeshadow to look like, because it wasn't a compact at all. It was a paint box, the kind a child would carry to art class. Hit that subscribe button, because the eyes were the whole conversation back then. And once you see what went into building one, you will never look at a modern mascara wand the same way again. Somewhere along the way, convenience took over. One swipe, waterproof, foolproof, done in 10 seconds flat. That is the villain of this story, quietly and without any malice, because convenience always wins in the end. But before it did, women built their eyes by hand, one deliberate step at a time, standing at a mirror with a lamp pulled close and a Sunday's worth of patience on a Tuesday morning. Nobody was born knowing how to do any of this. Somebody taught somebody in a kitchen or a bathroom or the backseat of a car on the way to a dance, and that is exactly the thread we are about to pull. Let us count down the 20 forgotten secrets that convenience buried. Number 20 was cake mascara itself, a hardened block of pigment and soap, moistened with a wet brush or with spit when there was nothing else. It clumped if you rushed it, and it curled beautifully if you didn't. And there was a particular skill in knowing exactly how wet the brush needed to be. Not so wet it ran, not so dry it dragged. When Maybelline first sold its version, it went for 75 cents in a little box with a mirror built into the lid, small enough to carry in a coat pocket. Tube mascara ended its reign for good by the middle of the decade, and something about the ceremony of it, the water, the cake, the careful scrubbing, simply disappeared with it. The way a whole small habit can vanish in a single season once something easier comes along. Number 19 was the two-brush trick. One brush loaded the color onto the lashes, and a second, dry brush, followed right behind it to separate anything that clumped together, sweeping through strand by strand until every lash stood apart from the next, the way you might comb out a knot after a bath, patient and unhurried. Two tools for one job, patience built right into the method, the kind of small extra step nobody would think to bother with today. Today's wands do both jobs at once, and something in the precision got lost along the way. Some particular attentiveness that came from doing a thing in two careful stages instead of one quick one. Number 18 was the mascara-matic. In 1957, Helena Rubinstein introduced a mascara with a grooved metal wand built right into the tube. No water, no brush, no cake, just a twist and a stroke. It felt like magic the first time you used it, the sheer ease of it after years of the cake and the spit and the careful brushwork. And it also quietly signed Cake Mascara's death warrant, though nobody standing at a drugstore counter that year could have known it. They just knew the girl behind the counter had shown them something new, twisted the little cap, drawn it once across the back of her own hand to prove it, and they had bought it on the spot, tucked it into a purse, and carried the future home without even realizing that's what it was. Number 17 was Maybelline's Magic Mascara. A year later, in 1958, Maybelline answered with its own tube, but with a brush applicator instead of a metal wand, the shape of nearly every mascara you have used since. So familiar now that it is almost impossible to picture eyes any other way. It arrived right at the doorstep of the decade that would make eyes the center of everything, and it changed, in one small tube, exactly what getting ready in the morning would feel like from then on. Faster, easier, and just a little less like a craft passed down, and a little more like a product picked up off a shelf. Number 16 was white eyeliner along the lower waterline. Drawn carefully on the inside rim of the lower lid, it made tired eyes look wide awake in a single stroke, a trick you could do in under a minute once you had the hand for it, the pencil held almost flat against the eye. The trick being to blink as little as possible while you worked. You don't see this one anymore because modern liner goes dark on the rim, not pale, and the whole idea of brightening an eye from the inside out has quietly fallen out of fashion. Number 15 was drawn on lower lashes. This was Twiggy's own trick, and it is the one most completely forgotten. Instead of wearing false lashes on the bottom lid, she painted the illusion of them with a fine brush and a pot of liner, stroke by careful stroke, each tiny line placed exactly where a real lash would fall, so precisely that a photograph could not always tell the difference. Women practiced this one for weeks in front of a mirror before they trusted themselves to do it in under 10 minutes on an ordinary morning. Number 14 was Yardley's Twiggy makeup line, an entire cosmetics range sold in stores, built around one model's specific eyes and lashes. You could buy the look packaged with her name on the box and stand at your own mirror trying to draw the same lashes she had drawn on herself, learning her hand as if it were your own, until her particular flick started to feel like second nature on your own face. It was an odd, wonderful thing to buy not just a product, but a specific pair of eyes, and to spend a week trying to make them yours. Let us pause here for a second. Somewhere in a bathroom with a cracked tile floor, a woman leaned toward a mirror with a lash strip balanced on one fingertip, holding perfectly still, waiting for the glue to tack. Nobody was filming her. Nobody needed to see it but her. That was the whole point. Number 13 was feathering and trimming false lashes. Nobody wore a strip straight from the package. You held it by the band and snipped the tips inward with small scissors to thin it, then trimmed the strip itself to the exact width of your own eye, every single pair, every single time, because no two eyes and no two boxes of lashes were ever quite the same shape, and a strip that fit your sister's eye never quite fit yours. Number 12 was individual cluster lashes. Tiny groups of lashes were picked up one cluster at a time with tweezers, dipped in glue, and held in place for a slow 5 count while it tacked. Your hand perfectly steady, your breath held without even noticing you were holding it. It was painstaking and precise in a way a full strip never has to be, and it rewarded exactly the kind of patience that nobody has time for anymore. A whole eye, built cluster by cluster, could take the better part of an hour, and there was a strange satisfaction in watching it come together, one tiny piece at a time. Number 11 was the travel lash kit, a small plastic box carried in a purse, holding a couple of rubber bands, a fat pencil, tweezers, a little mirror, cotton swabs, and a scrap of greaseproof paper. Everything a lash emergency might call for. Miles from home, in the back of a car or the ladies' room of a restaurant, quietly unzipped under a table without anyone else at dinner ever noticing. Number 10 was the magnifying mirror and a strong lamp. Without both, none of this was possible. You could not feather a lash, place a cluster, or draw a flick by feel alone. The light had to be right, and the mirror had to bring your own eye close enough to see every lash individually, close enough that your own reflection stopped looking quite like you and started looking like a task to be completed with care, patient, and exacting, the way you might thread a needle. Some women kept that mirror on a little folding stand, angled just so, and it traveled with them from apartment to apartment for decades. Number 9 was Mary Quant's paint box. When she launched her cosmetics line in London in March of 1966, she packaged the eyeshadow to look like an artist's watercolor set. The same tools she said she had used herself while experimenting: paintbrushes, crayons, little blocks of color. As if putting on your face were no different from an afternoon spent painting for the pure pleasure of it. No different, really, from being a child again with a box of watercolors and an empty page. She had turned a serious grown-up ritual into something that looked, on the outside at least, like a game. Number 8 was Starker's foundation, also from Quant. Deliberately pale, deliberately minimal, built to leave the face quiet so the eyes could do all the talking. She put it plainly herself. Now that the clothes were different, she said, the face was wrong. And an entire philosophy of makeup followed from that one observation that the rest of the face should step back and let the eyes carry the whole room. Number 7 was frosted, iridescent shadow, swept along the brow bone as a highlight rather than a color, catching the light every time you looked up, a small shimmer that moved with you through a room, across a dance floor, under the kind of low restaurant lighting that made everything look a little softer than it really was. It has mostly gone matte since, and something of that particular sparkle, the way it caught a chandelier or a car headlight, has simply gone quiet. Number 6 was eye-shape contouring, a genuinely different formula for every eye. White highlight and a lifted brow bone were used for prominent eyes, while brown or gray shadow preceded a heavier lid, each woman learning the particular geometry of her own face the way she might learn a recipe by heart through repetition. It was a whole quiet system tailored to the individual face in a way today's one-size tutorials rarely bother with. You did not follow a stranger's face on a screen. You studied your own in that same strong lamplight until you knew exactly which shadow belonged to which corner of your own particular eye. And nobody else's instructions could have told you that as well as your own mirror did. Number 5 was drawing the flick before the liner. You put the upward flick at the outer corner down first, then worked the liner line in to meet it, rather than trying to draw one continuous stroke and hoping the end came out even. And once you learned to do it in that order, your hand never shook over it again, not even on a morning when you were running late and everyone else in the house was already calling for you. Number 4 was Cleopatra's shadow. Elizabeth Taylor's 1963 film brought dark, dramatic, heavily lined eyes into fashion magazines almost overnight, A single costume department reshaping how ordinary women drew their eyeliner for the rest of the decade, so that a movie seen once in a dark theater ended up on 1,000 bathroom mirrors the following week. Women tracing lines they had only glimpsed for 2 hours on a screen. It is hard to think of another film that changed so many faces so quickly, all across the country, without a single one of those women ever setting foot on the set. Number 3 was the false lash arms race. Coty and Revlon both raced to promise the first truly foolproof strip lash a woman could apply herself without a salon. Two of the biggest names in cosmetics competing over something as small as a strip of lashes, each certain that theirs was the pair that would finally make the whole process effortless. Each advertisement a little more confident than the last, promising a woman standing at her own mirror that this box, unlike the others in her drawer, would finally get it right on the first try. Number 2 was the Quant daisy. At her promotional pop-ups, every makeover finished the same way, with a small daisy hand painted near the cheekbone, right by the eye, a tiny signature stroke that told anyone who saw it exactly whose hands had done the work. It was a tiny signature, gone completely now, along with the particular playfulness that thought to put a flower on a face in the first place, a small joke shared between the woman in the chair and the woman holding the brush, gone the moment she washed her face that night and never quite recreated the same way twice. Number 1 was the simplest idea of all, that the eyes did the talking. That was the whole philosophy, stated plainly in one Maybelline advertisement of the era. In the quiet moments, it said, "The important things you say with your eyes." Every trick on this list, every hour at the mirror, the cake mascara and the drawn-on lashes and the daisy by the cheekbone, all of it was in service of that one idea, that a face could say something true without a single word. Something real got traded away somewhere in the middle of all this progress. Not beauty. Beauty never left. What went was the ritual itself, the slow, deliberate, imperfect hour at a mirror with someone who loved you standing behind your shoulder, showing you how. Nobody rushed a face back then. Nobody handed you a finished look in a single swipe. You built it, lash by lash, cluster by cluster, and you got it wrong more than once before you got it right. And that was simply how it was done. There was no shame in taking an hour over a face. There was no rush to be finished before anyone noticed you'd started. Nobody stood outside the bathroom door tapping a watch. The morning simply made room for it, the way it made room for coffee or for the radio warming up, because a face was worth exactly as much time as it took. It was not vanity. It was closer to devotion. The same patient devotion you might give to anything you truly cared about getting right. Convenience did not steal anything by force. It just made the old way unnecessary. And unnecessary things have a way of quietly disappearing, one small ritual at a time, until one day you look up and realize nobody teaches it anymore. Back then, a face took time. Nobody minded. If you remember any of this, you are not foolish for missing it, and you are not imagining that it mattered. It was real. The hour at the mirror, the borrowed compact, the sting of glue drying a little too fast, the particular hush of a bathroom before anyone else in the house was awake. All of it was a real way of loving yourself and being loved, taught hand to hand instead of screen to screen. That world was good, in its own particular, unhurried way, and you were lucky to have stood in front of that mirror while someone showed you how. Lucky to have had someone patient enough to teach you, and lucky, most of all, to still remember it so clearly all these years later. Some of what you learned in that bathroom never left you. even if the tools did. So tell me, in the comments, what's the sound or the smell from your mother's or your grandmother's vanity that you would give absolutely anything to have back, just for one more ordinary morning?